To the surprise of basically everyone, Zygarde is now in Pokemon Go. It is promoting Pokemon Go's new route feature. Unfortunately, this feature is very broken right now, so good luck. And the only way you can progress your Zygarde is participating with the feature, so good luck. But Zygarde is now here. It is available, and you can use it in PvP and in raids. So in this video, I'm going to cover the basics about Zygarde and just how good it is in raids and in PvP. So let's get into it. So starting out, Zygarde is like a bunch of cells combined, right? So I guess the idea is with Pokemon Go, you have this routes feature, and when you participate in routes, you have the chance to find a Zygarde cell. And when you collect so many Zygarde cells, Zygarde has the ability to transform into one of its different stages. So you got the doggo form, this is 10%. You got the big Sneck form, that is 50%. And you got the big old Megazord over here, which is the completed Zygarde, right? Pretty impressive looking guy. This thing's probably really good in Master League or something, right? But yeah, so it is a pretty interesting Pokemon. Exactly how the form change works in Pokemon Go is still being uncovered. I think it is like a true form change in Pokemon Go, so you can go from point A to point B and maybe even backwards, but I don't know too many details on that part of the game. I mostly know the stats and just how good they're going to be in the meta, so that's what my focus will be on in this video. We'll figure out the rest of it later. When it comes to all Zygarde forms, all forms are going to be a Dragon ground type Pokemon, much like Flygon and Garchomp, but all three forms will have different stats compared to each other. So here I have the stats of the completed form of Zygarde. So we're looking at 185 attack, 211 defense, and 389 stamina. So as a raid attacker, this is a little off-putting. Usually you want to be cracking 200 attack to be like a pretty decent raid attacker. And then even then there are bigger attack stat Pokemon out there that you're going to be competing with. So this isn't exactly a good look for the completed Big Daddy form of Zygarde here. But the huge bulk here, the gargantuan stamina, that is a pretty good indicator for success in PvP. So I think we can expect the Zygarde to be a pretty potent PvP Pokemon. And one quick thing I want to note about the stats here too is in the official data mine, it has 184 attack and 207 defense. So I don't know what the cause for the slight variation is between the data mine and Game Press. I know that we use stat translations from the main series games, like the formula Pokemon Go uses to translate the main series stats into Pokemon Go stats. So I don't know, maybe there was a stat change between Gen 7 and Gen 9, and that is what's causing the slight difference. Maybe there's like a rounding error or something, but basically the same stats we have here, just ever so slightly different. When it comes to Zygarde's move pool, we got Dragon Tail, which is really good for a Dragon type Pokemon to have in both raids and in PvP. We got Bite, which isn't terribly impressive, but it's not 100% terrible. And then Zen Headbutt, which is the official bad move in Pokemon Go. So I guess Pokemon Go just wants to give us a little fast TM tax when we're trying to get Dragon Tail on our Zygarde. When it comes to charge moves, we got Outrage, which is pretty typical of legendary Dragon type Pokemon. Earthquake, not bad, but not exactly the most impressive ground type attack these days. Crunch, which is pretty decent, pretty good to have. Hyper Beam, which is just charge TM tax, and then Bulldoze, even more charge TM tax. Niantic has to feel a little disgusted with themselves, giving both Earthquake and Bulldoze to the same Pokemon, like, come on. And as it stands between the three forms in the data mine right now, it looks like they're all sharing this move pool. Of course, things may change in the future. We'll have to see. So when it comes to Zygarde as a Dragon type attacker, here I have the DPS TDO spreadsheet from Game Press, and holy smokes, what is Mega Rayquaza 3%? Yeah, apparently Pokemon Go is buffing Mega Rayquaza, who's already absurdly strong. They're making it stronger. I haven't done the newly buffed Mega Rayquaza as a video yet. If you are interested in seeing that video, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips, because I was going to make it today, but all this Zygarde stuff came out. So Zygarde video instead. But you can see here on the first page, even sorting by ER, which is the overall goodness of a raid attacker, so giving a little bit of love to the bulkier Pokemon, not just high damaging Pokemon. Yeah, there's no Zygarde completed form. We go to the second page, I don't see no Zygarde here. Third page? No. No Zygarde. Fourth page? There we are. There's our big old Megazord looking buddy. 12.5 DPS. That's pretty cringe, you know? Really good bulk. Pretty impressive at hanging around. If you want to get the Stamina Master achievement here, I guess this is a way to do it. But not a very strong raid attacker, all things considered. The ER on it, the overall goodness kind of value, isn't that great. Giratina Origin Form with Dragon type attacks is roughly on its level. Alolan Executor is basically on its level with higher DPS. You know, even 50% Zygarde has higher DPS in it because it actually does have a slightly higher attack stat, but a little bit of tax on the bulk there. But yeah, as a dragon type raid attacker, Zygarde ain't looking that great. If you're curious about it as a ground type raid attacker, it doesn't have a ground type fast move right now, so also not looking too great there, but that could change in the future because Zygarde does have 4 different signature attacks, and 3 of those attacks are ground type attacks, so maybe sometime in the future that could get worked in as a fast move, and one of them could be a charge move too, and then Zygarde could see some love as a ground type raid attacker, but I mean, based on these results, I kind of doubt that it's going to be terribly impressive, even with a lot of love. And if you want to know about it as a dark type attacker, with the bite and the crunch, just no. It's not that good. It's basically like this level of results, but slightly worse. So yeah, not exactly a big raid Pokemon, but that big HP though. PvP. Checking out on pvpoke.com here, the 10% form of Zygarde is a lower stat product than Flygon. Remember, they're both Dragon ground type Pokemon. They both have access to Dragon Tail. And big difference with Flygon here is that we also get Dragon Claw, which has same type attack bonus, so slightly better than Crunch in a lot of cases, and Earth Power instead of Earthquake, which these two moves are roughly on par with each other, but Earth Power does come sooner, and when you got a big slow move like Dragon Tail, that speed really does add up pretty fast. Not only that, but Flygon can come in a Shadow flavor, and also has Mud Shot to work with, and has additional coverage with Stone Edge. And I guess if you're feeling spicy, it also has Boom Burst for something. Charge move tax, probably, but Stone Edge is pretty good for coverage on the Flygon. In limited formats where Flygon is used, Stone Edge is usually abused a little bit there. So yeah, 10% form, really not looking too hot next to Flygon. Bumping on up to the Sneck version, the 50% form, roughly the same kind of situation. We do have slightly better stats than the Flygon here, so it could be considered better than Flygon if you're looking for Crunch as a coverage attack, and it could be way better if we get the signature attacks in the future too, so it is worth considering. But I think all in all, we don't see a whole lot of Flygon in the current open meta, and this is a slight upgrade to that Flygon. It's still like worse than the Altaria. It's like roughly as good, slightly worse than the Guzzlord. So overall, Zygarde 50% form kind of fails to impress me in the Great League as well. Then finally, we got big old Megazord Zygarde over here, and it's got bigger stat product. It's got 2,292. In fact, that's roughly as much stat product, even more stat product than the rank 1 Altaria here. So this is a Pokemon that could really give Altaria a run for its money as a premier dragon type attacker. Now Altaria does get an additional boost in its utility because it's also a flying type Pokemon, so very nice set of resistances for the Great League PvP, but we are going to be entering the Carbonk meta here soon, where Carbonk comes out, a big, scarier than Bastiodon, rock type attacking Pokemon. Zygarde is sub-ground type, so while that fight's not going to be terribly great for Zygarde because, you know, Dragon Tail, doubly resisted by the Fairy type that is Carbonk, we are resisting the rock type attacks, and we do got big Earthquake to hit that rock type Pokemon with, so Zygarde could shape up a little bit better in this future, you know, Carbonk kind of meta. To add to that as well, Zygarde Complete form in the Great League can go toe-to-toe with Galarian Stunfisk and Registeel, which is pretty good, and it takes neutral from Swampert because of the sub-dragon type attack, so there are some like additional perks Zygarde can bring as this big, ugly, high bulk ground dragon Pokemon. So it could be pretty spicy for the Great League. Big problem Zygarde has here, though, is we get the Research Zygarde, right? And we can't trade it. And you see it's 5, 14, 8 at level 15. So if we had like the IVs that we actually get it with, like as low as we can go, 10, 10, 10, 14.5. Which means without trading, Zygarde Complete form can't fit into the Great League PvP at all. And even if it could, only the research versions would be able to reroll. Because if you had a level 21 from raids, let's say, and you re-rolled it to 111 and didn't get auto-corrected, yeah, 1880. So Zygarde Complete form might not be making its way in Great League, despite how cool it looks. Then when it comes to Ultra League PvP, Zygarde Complete form can definitely fit here, and it's definitely looking pretty good. Here are the rankings from pvpoke.com. Rankings only mean so much in the grand scheme of things. There is the team you're running, there is the meta that you're running into, but this thing actually has higher stat product than XL Registeel, which is pretty big. And as you can see here, it's ranking number 2 on pvpoke.com. So, you know what? It's not really happening in the Great League because it just can't fit in there. Guess where it can fit? It can fit in Ultra League, and it's looking pretty good in the Ultra League. And then finally, there is Master League PvP, and Zygarde Complete form, wouldn't you know it, is number 1 on the chart here on pvpoke.com. Once again, team comp and meta, more important than just a ranking chart, but being number 1 on the ranking chart is kind of a big deal, especially when the meta score is 97.9 and the next best thing is 94.9. I mean, that's kind of a big gap there. So Zygarde is looking like a pretty big deal when it comes to Master League PvP. To add to that, Zygarde with its gargantuan bulk actually has more stat product even than the big Lugia, which is kind of crazy. And while Lugia does have a general advantage over Zygarde, because we got Dragon Tail, super effective Dragon type hit, and then Zygarde here is using neutral Dragon Tail and has a big ground type attack, the fight does end up being pretty close because of crunch and how slow Lugia gets to the, Sky Attack and the Aero Blast. So yeah, Zygarde's looking pretty nasty in the Master League. The only things that really stand up to it are Fairy type Pokemon and Ice type Pokemon, which, the Master League is a little bit of short supply in, aside from like Zacian. So Zygarde. And I think this does lead to a little bit of a controversy with Zygarde's current release. It is a research exclusive Pokemon. As it stands, there's no way to get additional Zygardes. So if you don't get the Hundo, well, then you're going to have a lesser Zygarde. And when it comes to breakpoints, your Zygarde could be getting, fast move breakpoints or losing fast move breakpoints against the competition here. And if you don't have like a certain level of goodness on your Zygarde, if you're the 14, 14, 14 instead of the 15, 15, 15, let's say, your Zygarde could be markedly worse. Or at the very least, if you're fighting other Zygarde, you'll lose charge move priority against those other Zygarde. We had a similar sort of issue when Zarude debuted, and what I found with doing a Zarude PvP IV deep dive for the Master League was that about 50% of people that got a Zarude that you could use well in the Master League, and then the other 50% had a subpar Zarude, which would probably cause you problems in the Master League because your opponents would get additional fast move damage on you, or you wouldn't be doing as much fast move damage with your Vine Whip against some important threats, or your HP would cause you to get KO'd sooner than you'd like to in some fights. So yeah, kind of a bummer that we have the one and only Zygarde, number 1 in the Master League, and you might just be a player that doesn't have a very good Zygarde. I'll have to see how the Zygarde situation develops. If I do find some free time, maybe I'll do a Master League Zygarde PvP IV deep dive. Just let people know sooner rather than later if their Zygarde is even worth thinking about walking out to XL up for the Master League, or if they should just wait, hope, and pray for additional opportunities to get Zygarde in the future. Then to add to that, I kind of hope that if Zygarde does become available in raids or something similar to that, that it's still trade locked, sort of like how Deoxys is, because once again, when it comes to the Great League PvP, Zygarde could be doing some pretty big things there too. But you'd have to trade for the research one, not the raid weighted one. Raid Pokemon are level 20, research Pokemon are level 15. So it'd create this situation where people would make multiple accounts just to trade them research Zygardes, and then that could give people an unfair advantage in the Great League. So until Pokemon Go is really willing to compromise with the player base and add some IV influencing features into the game, You know, I really don't want to see Zygarde in the Great League in any way, shape, or form, or in this form, I guess. Now, one final thing I want to point out about Zygarde here, at least for the Great League PvP, is that while the Snek form, the 50% form, isn't terribly impressive in the Great League right now, Zygarde does have 4 different signature attacks it can learn in the main series games. And if those signature attacks are significant enough, that could give a pretty big boost to the Snek form. So if you power up your Research Zygarde right now, you won't be able to get an additional one in the future unless they make it trade available. And if they don't make it trade available, then you won't have a way to get a level 15 or a sub-level 20 Snek Zygarde into the Great League, right? So this is the only way to get it in the Great League. If it gets a big special attack and it's only available in raids, then you wouldn't be able to get it into the Great League. So I wouldn't be too zealous right now to try to power it up for like the Ultra League or the Master League if Great League is your focus. For me as a trainer, Great League is all I really care about, so I probably won't be powering up my Zygarde for the Ultra League, and I'll probably never do the Master League at this point because it just takes too much time and too much money to build a team. So yeah, so just something to think about if you are a multi-leaguer. Maybe just hold out, because if Zygarde does happen in raids, then you got your Ultra League Zygarde that way anyways. And if you have no possible way of getting the sub-level 20, well, then you could be locked out of this spice forever. But of course, this is the McMaybe future where Zygarde gets a good signature attack out of its 4 signature attacks. It might not get any of them, or it could be years before it gets them. So it's up to you what you want to do with your Zygarde. I just didn't want to, tell people it's a-okay to power it up for the Ultra League or the Master League before letting them know about this possible missable here for the future. So yeah, we'll have to see once we get more details. So that's about all I gotta say right now about Zygarde. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. Then finally we got big old Megazord guard.